So I'm Duncan Hunter and I'm a lecturer at the University of Hull.
I'm Richard Smith, Associate Professor at the University of Warwick.
We're going to be introducing our 2012 article, Unpackaging the Past, CLT through ELTJ Keywords, which appeared in ELT Journal Volume 66, Issue Number 4. So in our article, we looked at articles from the ELT Journal as a way to explore the discourse of one period of recent history, the 1970s and 1980s, to see what people at the time were actually talking about, the key topics and concepts.
And we wanted to take a historical perspective and look at actual data from the past in a systematic way. This is something we think needs to be done much more, because there are a lot of accounts of history around which are based on anecdote, hearsay, myth, and which don't bear much relation to the reality of what happened.
So one reason for doing this was to look closely at what communicative really means. Is it just a buzzword, or can we actually identify some underpinning preoccupations of what people are saying when they're discussing it as a concept? We wanted to see to what extent the communicative discussion was really new and revolutionary, and how much it was rooted in older or existing concerns. In other words, to see how much continuity there was with the past.
Yes, because ELT history often tends to be viewed as a kind of procession of method periods, where each method has its time, but is then seen to have limitations, and we move on to the next thing, which is again seen as the best. And stereotyping the past, or as we say in the article, packaging it up, is a way that people use to sell the latest ideas, as a way to move on and say, well, we don't need that from the past anymore, we can just throw it away.
So we made a corpus out of the ELT Journal articles, and we used keyword analysis, which can be a very powerful tool for identifying preoccupations in a text or a set of texts. In our case, we wanted to see what changed over time, so we separated an old editorial period, 1958 to 1973, from two newer periods, 1973 to 81 and 81 to 86, and found out which words emerged as key and which ones became less important.
However, we weren't happy just to look at quantitative findings. Like Raymond Williams, who wrote an important book on keywords and culture in 1976, we felt we should look at how the words are used in context, and we should build what we call word histories, histories of when the word first appeared and how it was used then, but also of how it might have changed in meaning over time. Our initial surface analysis based on quantitative data showed that in some ways what happened did seem to be quite revolutionary, particularly after 1981, when the journal came under a new editorship. Words like communicative, learner, activity, task and so on came in a big way.
However, things change when we start building word histories. Some of the most interesting examples were words like learner. We found that this became an important concept before communicative did in a way. So a focus on the learner seemed to be something older, which continued into the communicative period. And there's also activity, which was a newish label in the new subcorpus, but there was a lot of discussion of games in the older subcorpus, suggesting continuity with what had gone before. So good games should support meaningful use of language, control should be given over to students, very similar to the new discussion about activity. Both of these word histories showed that there was greater continuity with the past than has been seen before.
Then we come to the word communicative itself, and what was revealed here was discontinuity within the period, where at first it was used to mean functional, as in functional syllabus, communicative syllabus, whereas later writers are associating the word communicative much more with activities.
I think one main message is that there are buzzwords in our profession like communicative or CLT, whose meaning we just tend to take for granted and which tend to dominate our thinking, but which might mean different things to different people, or which might reveal several layers of meaning if we reflect on them deeply. And I think we've been trying to show that it's a good thing to be critical of buzzwords and think carefully about what they mean, and that historical research can help with that.
And ELT history isn't simply a procession of methods that can be packaged up and thrown into the dustbin of history. It's a usable, useful resource for the present if we look into it more closely and carefully.